Well, I'm back for this panel. I'm really excited about. We are going to talk about how the pandemic changed the course of VC and operations forever. It's been a crazy year for everyone and really changed our lives. But where we see this as financiers, the lens that we look at companies, how these businesses are evaluated and how they're ran, it has truly changed the way that we look at doing deals, helping founders, and leaning in to understand what is our role in investing in a company? What are our thoughts on the kinds of companies we want to invest in? The list just goes on how things have changed. I know me personally, managing partner at Hawke Ventures, we did a ton of deals last year in the very thick of the pandemic. I wrote checks to founders that I didn't even meet, and I still haven't met them yet. That was a really strange thing for me. And for, when I'm getting to know founders and evaluating companies, the human element of getting to know a founder is so big. So for me, investing in a company and getting our partners involved, it was such a strange thing not actually getting involved with a person in person and getting to understand that human from a in real life perspective. My question to you, Patrick, and my question to you, Jahara, can you guys tell me one key story that you can bring to the table about your pandemic investing and sort of how your lens has changed? Jahara, obviously you're at M13, you're doing amazing work there. You've been at Moonshots, Affinity, you have such a pitch.co, bringing investing in tech and culture in together. Tell me a little bit about a story that you could bring to the table about how you're during the pandemic and how it may have changed.
Yeah, I think obviously there was like a time period in which like a lot of investors were a little bit skittish and hesitant, right? Like rightfully so. I think all folks were, but I think you saw that heating up probably 6 months in, right? Capital is flowing so quickly, funds are being raised, valuations are insane, which is all very, very exciting, but definitely like representative of a changing market. And I think more so representative of how quickly humans can adapt, which is quite incredible to see if you really think about it. I think if anything, it just has gotten, I think, venture capitalists as a whole more comfortable with building relationships in the digital world, right, before being able to do it physically. So I think the best story I have is I got really close with a founder, like at the beginning of the pandemic, like by happenstance, right? Like another investor was like, you got to meet this founder. He's building this like next gen social investing tool. Like, I think you guys will hit it off. So I like cold emailed him. And we became like very fast friends. I just like loved his perspective. I love spending time around consumer fintech, especially as it focuses on like how's the next generation going to learn how to invest and like save their money. And that's exactly what he was solving, right? Focus on Gen Z and even Gen Alpha. And we became really, really good friends. And I think like our relationship became so close as if we had almost met in person, but like, we never did. Like we would text each other multiple times a week. We still do. He'd call me because I don't know what to do with business. And, this was before, like, I even looked at it in terms of like an investment standpoint. I was just truly genuinely interested in what he was building. And I think what's special about, or at least the one thing the pandemic forced us to do, right, was to really be able to get comfortable with the idea of trying to forge these bonds in new ways, right? And really kind of being open to what can happen over the internet. And he had hit this inflection point actually because of TikTok. Again, that also saw like a huge explosion because everyone's just at home and on their phones. The round got really crazy. Like he started getting term sheets. And I think because we were able to develop a relationship early on, we didn't ultimately end up investing. The valuation just got out of hand, but
as it does these days.
Yeah, but I think it was really special how I was able to at least, I even talked him out of taking some crazy term sheet at like $100 million valuation, which like considering the fact we'd never met each other in person, right? It's kind of a Herculean feat. And be able to have that like true trusted relationship in which I was like, look, I'm not just saying this selfishly, like I think this is a bad idea for you to take this. So I think that's the one piece that was really different and really special and kind of really forced us all to really adapt quickly.
And to your point on VCs being more comfortable with digital relationships, now we're like going out to dinners again, getting back together, getting on flights. One could say like, well, everything's just going to go back to the way it was. Talk to me about how it's going to change investing because we can form digital relationships and I don't have to get on a flight to New York or Toronto or Miami or Dallas just to like figure out if someone is worth investing in. Like, how does this now change what we do as investors?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like things are kind of slowly trickling back to normal, but I think the consumer behavior we've had almost 2 years of this, has changed quite a bit. It only takes really 2 to 3 months for consumer behavior to change, right? We're well past that. So,
Yep.
I mean, I still take actually most of my first and second and third calls, even more in the same city, over Zoom or over phone. It's just more efficient. I think I've now been like
It is more
used to
efficient.
stacking my calendar, whether right or wrong. But I do think like, in order for us to like fully deploy capital at this point, barring some like folks who are immunocompromised or just truly uncomfortable or whatever it may be, I think to actually finally get to the point where we can issue a term sheet and wire, like we do want to meet someone in person. So I think that's the only piece that changes. I think it's really our process is now truly more reflective of a more hybrid world, right? Instead of just being fully remote or fully in person.
Yeah, I agree. And Patrick, before I jump into your story, was there anything that Jahara said that vibed with you or you wanted to comment on?
No, I mean, I think she pretty much nailed it on the head. I mean, I think, M13 versus Patrick Schwarzenegger when it comes to investing is a whole different stratosphere. I'm very much a people person. I need to interact with the entrepreneur that I'm betting on, but I also am making way less investments, way less deals than a fund the size of M13. But I really like to focus on younger, entrepreneurs and younger companies in specific. So for me to have that one-on-one relationship with them, and I like to focus on those earlier stage companies because that's where I can have the most impact and where I can really, try to place myself in their shoes and really help with anything from manufacturing to marketing, the branding, to anything of the earlier stage elements. But that was definitely one of the biggest probably struggles during the beginning of the pandemic when it came to investing, because like I said, I'm such a people person, but I took a break for a few months from investing because I really wanted to see. I focus solely 90% on better for you health and wellness alternatives. So really everything that I do is in that food and bev space, fast casual restaurants, to things that you're finding in retail. And obviously retail came to a full blown halt. I mean, almost. We were doing 10% of what the traffic was prior to the pandemic. So I really wanted to see where brands were going to go, how they were going to evolve, how they were going to shift to the direct to consumer side. So much of our strategy was in-person samplings and stuff like that. So that was all cut out. So really it kind of allowed me to take a step off the investing field and really see which entrepreneurs were adapting and shifting and really kind of taking in this moment of COVID and finding ways to be unique and different. And I think that really allowed me to make, more strategic bets a few months after the pandemic had really started. So, yeah.
And do you have one like specific crazy story, or maybe even just like operationally, something that really made a big shift? So obviously we're talking about the shift from like sampling to more maybe direct to consumer content, or ways that content could then shift. Talk to us about maybe a story of one of your companies. You don't have to say like which one it was or whatever, but tell us something that was really fundamentally something that had to change, that had
oh
to
my
be
God. Every single one of our companies had to change. I mean, you're talking about Blaze Pizza, one of our franchises. We have 360 plus stores. No one was coming into our store. We were built for the customer to come in and customize their pizza. We said, okay, we want to be the Domino's. We want to be the Chipotle of Domino's, right? At the time when we created Blaze, there was no customizable pizzas for the customer to walk in and really watch themselves create the pizza. That's what we thrived on. That whole thing was taken away. So we were in panic mode. I mean, at that time, I'd sold majority stake of my shares in Blaze, but I was still part of it. And I thought they did a pretty unique thing within the first week or two. They started to do pizza doughs. So they did, pizza kits where they gave you the pizza doughs and they did the toppings, and you can customize your pizzas at home. And they would do the Instagram lives with our chef, Brad Kent, where he would go and teach you how to do, family made pizzas at home and stuff, which I thought was cool. But, those are the kinds of things where you really have to think outside the box and utilize media, utilize content, utilize finding ways to engage the family or engage the customer while they're at home and they can't go out. But operationally, there was just, I have a whole laundry list of nightmares we dealt with for every company, not just Blaze. But that was one of the more unique kind of situations that came out of it, and it was a really successful thing. And same with, our gyms. We have a lot of, gym concepts, from Rumble Boxing to Health House. No one was going to a gym, especially indoor. No one wanted to be with 30 other people sweating their asses off in a boxed room, and having to shift that, and starting out with just free workouts every morning on Instagram Live to Zoom workouts, and just, always coming up with creative things to engage the customer, and knowing that, I think that the biggest thing is, like, you have to remember what your brand mission is, what your end results are that you're wanting to go, your destination. And then, of course, there's always things in life that are going to shift and change to how you get to that end place. Obviously, COVID was an enormous shift and change, but I think the real successful leaders that always were able to focus on that end destination, and not get too distraught by what was happening in the current moment, and think of other ways to bring their product or their why to the customer, were the ones that I was proud to be betting on and would continue to bet on.
What a true test of leadership, right? I mean, we saw the entrepreneurs in the trenches that made the changes, that made the hard decisions. A lot of them came out and figured out ways to reinvent themselves. Those are staying with them. They're either completely revitalized, or they really got themselves through this time, and now they're back to their main mission. Just an amazing time to watch leaders grow and the decisions that they make, especially as investors, where we're not the ones necessarily driving it, but we're helping. Really separated the wheat from the chaff. Johara, tell me a little bit about maybe one of the companies that you guys have invested in, whether it's M13 or another company, that really had to go and change their operation. I love the pizza kit example. When I was a kid, I used to sell Hungry Howie's pizza kits to like my neighborhood, and people loved making pizzas at home. So like that nostalgia that just got installed into people when they're going through some of the crappiest times of their life. I mean, brilliant. Give us some examples, Johara, of some of your companies and some of the changes they had to make.
Yeah. So, I'll reference a company that kind of COVID actually positively impacted their business, but like almost like too positively, right? Because they're like a small company. So my last firm, we invested in a company called eTailPet, essentially would create a digital presence for like pet stores, right? Which are most traditionally pretty brick and mortar. And so as soon as the pandemic happened, social distancing happened, their business exploded, which was incredible. But when you're a team of like 7 folks, trying to field that types of inbound sales was really, really difficult. So, I think what I saw that CEO do was just react really quickly. She was really good at pushing the folks who were already on the team who were uncomfortable kind of stepping up, because everyone had to essentially step into a role that they had not traditionally done. And that was a lot larger, right, and required more of them. And so I think what she did really well was really instill that type of confidence in her employees so that they could be able to execute at a high level while still maintaining that they would have a quality life, and that making sure that they didn't get burnt out. And I think that was a real testament to her leadership skills. And that, obviously I think a lot of CEOs would either freak out or perhaps like start making really quick hires, right, or be incredibly reactive. Instead, she kind of doubled down on her existing team, tried to move quickly, made some hires, but also instead looked at her resource that she had, instilled trust in them, and tried to push them to step up into new roles in order to sustain the company.
I mean, that's a true testament of, again, leadership, charisma, empathy, understanding how to lean into the team that you have and figure out what their needs are so that they can be successful. I mean, I think that a lot of leaders had to sort out what that looked like in the pandemic, with people at home on their laptops, not coming into the office anymore. You can read on somebody's face if they're having a bad day. It's totally different when you're on a laptop. I mean, that's a great story. So one of the other things that I think is important to address on this panel is, business models have changed, the world has changed, industries, we're looking at them differently than we did before. There's a couple industries that I'm looking at now because of what happened in the pandemic. And, I'm curious sort of from your perspectives as investors, what are the sort of areas that are more interesting for you now than they were before? I mean, for me, I'm looking at productivity in a really different lens than I did even before this. Now that work from home is such a big deal, how do we keep people productive, happy? What are the tools and services around that? That's just one thing that I've noticed. Either of you, if we want to chime in, what's an industry that now is more interesting to you than it was before because of how the pandemic has changed our economy and our ecosystem?
Oh man, there's tons of things, I guess. Just going back to kind of some of the areas that I was already invested in and how that kind of shifted. I mentioned kind of the gyms, right? The boutique fitness classes, which I was very bullish on the last 5 years. Totally changed to being the at-home workouts. From the Pelotons to the Tonals to the there's a handful of ones, Hydras. A bunch of different companies that have come out during the pandemic specifically, and then also, benefited from that. So I think the at-home gym workout class scenario has been very interesting. I think mental health, a lot of different apps and things for at home have continue to be very interesting during this time, and I think will only continue from here on out. From the B2B plays of different companies offering it for their customers or just the customer looking for it on their own. I don't know what you guys are specifically looking at. The thing is, for me, I'm really passionate, and the area that I'm a customer in the most is this health and wellness space. So that's really where I like and try to focus on, because that's where I can be the most helpful and the most beneficial. And I am a customer, and there's tons of tech stuff out there. I just am not, I'm not your best friend when it comes to that, or the most educated. So I try to stay in my lane, but yeah.
So that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that's exactly right. I think you touched on, Patrick and Drew, like two big ones, right? Like, and I think even a step further for us on like mental health and just health in general, I think, COVID obviously accelerated trends that were already existing. I think you see the overall the increased consumerization of almost everything, especially things around health. And COVID really kind of confronted everyone with their own mortality, right? And like, what does longevity look like? And so I think you see an increased trends around consumerization of traditional physical health, but as well as mental health. And what I think is really interesting actually is like this overall trend towards starting to stop delineating mental health from physical health, and instead just seeing people as the whole being, and trying to look for products that let you have insights in how these two things are interconnected.
Well said.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I mean, if just looking at our personal deal flow as a firm in the last year and a half, 2 years, like the amount of like the percentage of wellness and health pitches that I've gotten has probably gone up like 100%, if not more. I mean, I'm just seeing it every single day.
Yeah.
And I think that entrepreneurs are a testament to finding needs in the market and finding ways to do them better than the existing solutions that we have. And they're really the drivers of the innovation, and they're the drivers of how can I do this better? And I think that that's a really important place that investors get to sit, is deciding which of these folks are more true than others. And that can be really hard to make those decisions. So I want to open up questions to the audience before I ask one more question. So if you guys could please go into the chat, start asking some questions. I'm sure there's a ton for both Jahar and Patrick. They're both just the smartest people. I love doing these panels with my friends who are investors, because it's just like, I love hearing what you guys have to say. If you had any advice for the folks in the audience who are builders, they're entrepreneurs, they're dreamers, what is your advice on going to market with a company, going to market with investors? How can you speak in the different terms and nomenclature in order to get your attention or the attention of others? What is some advice that you might give to someone in the audience who has an idea, they're working on it, they're building it? What would you say to them?
Well, I mean, as in terms of trying to come up with the different slang words and knowing the dialogue and everything that investors know, I wouldn't try to be, not yourself. I think that everyone starts somewhere. It's everyone's first time at some point. I have a handful of companies, from Super Coffee to Outer to Nugs to all these different companies that were started by people in their low 20s. super coffee guys were started out of their dorm in college, had never started a business, didn't go to business school, didn't know anything about going to an investor or anything. And, now they're raising at over $500 million. Same with Outer, and Nugs was started by an 18-year-old. So first off, I don't want to have this idea that you need to know everything. You need to know these special terms and how to approach an investor the right, correct way. Because, everyone starts at some place. And I think that a huge part of what I invest in is the actual person. And I'm a big believer in betting on the jockey and really kind of trying to see their true colors, how hard they work, their determination, their belief in their mission and their product, not so much if they can articulate X, Y, and Z, wording and stuff like that. So, I think really for entrepreneurs is, money is flowing fast out there today, but that doesn't mean just go start a business because you want to start a business. I would always go back to the real golden rule of trying to figure out what opportunity is out there. What pain point are you having specifically right now? I think one of the beautiful things that has come out of COVID is that it's created a lot of pain points for a lot of people in so many different sectors, in so many different ways. And if you're one of those people that have felt one of these major pain points, or you're seeing it, use that as the opportunity to go out and create that business. And I think if you're able to articulate that to an investor, to a fund, or whoever, they'll be able to understand that. You'll be able to shape and tune your verbal words and your business plan and all of this different, your deck, and make it look beautiful and everything. But really go back to the core elements of what makes a true entrepreneur and how you create a real business.
I love all of that advice so much. I couldn't agree with it more. I'm a huge fan of Simon Sinek, Finding Your Why, going back to the stories in your life that create the why that is your future.
He's a brilliant guy. I had dinner with him last night, and actually he's one of my mentors, and he always, I remember going into a little crisis in the beginning of COVID of one of my areas of work, film and everything, going to complete stop. And him just reshaping of understanding where was it that I wanted to go. Didn't too much of us, focuses on what someone does. And he's actually a really good example of when you ask him what he does, he never says what he does. He says where he's trying to go and what are the verticals he's using to get himself there. But that was a tangent. Sorry. Go on.
No. That's super unique. And I love that. I think for entrepreneurs out there, and the way you present yourself to investors, to partners, to people you're trying to hire, if you really can follow these principles of finding your why and talk true to yourself, you'll be so much more successful. Jahara, what about you? What's some advice that you have for entrepreneurs?
I think Patrick hit everything on the head. He is much more of an entrepreneur. I know he's much more of an entrepreneur than I will ever be. I had roommates with my dinner with my roommates last night, so that already he won there.
Yeah, that was a subtle flex on my part. Sorry.
That was a flex. I loved it though. But I think the way I kind of think about things is very similar, right? And I think that's less about speaking the language of a VC. Look, I don't come from a traditional VC background. That can be learned. I don't think that's the barometer. And I don't think M13 is not hiring someone because, they don't understand, they can't define TAM quickly enough, or they don't calculate CAC in the ways that we do, right? I think what we're looking for are people who have tenacity, have drive, have founder market or founder product fit, right? And founder solution fit. I think the biggest question you should ask yourself is am I the right person to build this? Am I the best person to build this, and why? Right. And I think if you have that, and you have that in something that's a big market with something that's a very different solution, and whether it be different because of the actual product, or different because of your unique distribution model, or different because of the way you're approaching it, or your unique background, I think that already sets you ahead. And I think that's what's most important.
Love it. So good. Okay, audience. Questions from you. We got 5 minutes for audience questions, and we'd love to hear from you. And then after we do audience questions, we're going to have a special edition of the Hawke Cage, where we're going to have 2 entrepreneurs come on stage, tell us about their business. Myself, Jahara, and Patrick are going to ask them some questions. And 2 entrepreneurs are going in the cage after this. But first, let's see if we have any questions for the audience. I'm looking to see on the Q&A if we have any. I am not seeing it right now. I'm sure we have questions. We don't have any questions? No way. I am flabbergasted.
I
We'll
have
wait
one.
a second to see. Yeah, go ahead. Shoot.
I'm curious to see what both you guys, since you're both in a big office. I mean, you can't see right now, but I'm in my office. One of the biggest struggles I've had recently is how to approach talking with some of my employees about bringing them back into the office. I mean, I'm totally cool with working with people over Zoom, but a lot of me works really well in the conference room, just coming up with ideas. I've definitely struggled I don't want to make them come in, or, certain people are uncomfortable with certain things, but how you're getting that creativity with both your guys' companies and trying to manage employees and what they're wanting to do during these times.
Yeah. I mean, there's 200 people plus that work at Hawke Media, and we're all scattered across the country. I think as a venture firm that sits outside of the firm, or out of the media company, we struggle. I struggle to build relationships, and there's new people that come into the company. I haven't met them. I think that Hawke Media made the decision to go fully remote, and people were pretty excited about that. Could work from anywhere. But yeah, I've been in person a couple times. We got a WeWork now down in El Segundo, and it's been so fantastic to see people's faces and to actually interact with them and hug or wear masks or whatever it is. But in terms of approaching that, it feels like it's always like an opt-in sort of thing, not an opt-out kind of thing. I would say that to me is sort of the empathic response is like, what are you comfortable with? I'd love to see you, or I'd love to get a coffee or whatever it is. But I think it's sort of feeling out what people are comfortable with. Even though we've, made a lot of progress here, it feels like something that you sort of still have to ask folks to opt in.
Yeah, I think that's right. I mean, we're much smaller than you guys. We're, I think, at around 25, 27 folks now. But I mean, I joined M13 like in the middle of the pandemic, like December 2020, which was rough. So we have been kind of remote, slowly trickling back, obviously having some like false starts because of like COVID rates. I mean, we have an office in LA and an office in New York. So we're kind of just at the mercy of like what's happening on a more macro level. But I think like no enforcement around going to the office. I think what we're seeing is like folks kind of coming in if they want to 1 to 3 times a week, because I think that collaboration is quite nice. But I think people kind of still feeling most comfortable working from home unless like they know that it's going to still be a minimal amount of people in the office and there's going to be some value out of going to the office.
That's great. Great question, Patrick, too. We have a couple questions coming in. One is from Aisha. How have you guys found your mentors or the right fit of a mentor? Patrick led with his with this sort of statement. Anyone want to take a stab at this one?
How did we find the right? What was it you said?
How have you guys found your mentors or the right fit of a mentor? What are the ways in which you seek out mentorship, essentially?
Oh, you want to take it?
Yeah.
Sure. I mean, I'm talking to no.
You go first.
Okay, I was just gonna say I don't really have a lot of mentors, and I'm actively always looking for a mentor. I have one mentor that I actively call my mentor. I have a few people who are in mentor roles and probably don't know that I call them my mentor, but the way I found my mentor, she like denied me from a job, so and has mentored me since.
Awesome.
I know. And now we work together.
It's
a barber.
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's like, what is that relationship of like, hey, will you be my mentor? It's kind of like a weird question or request or what I've found, my mentors. I mean, Simon's definitely one of them. My dad is definitely one of them. My mom's definitely one of them. And another guy named Ed Milet is one of them. But they're people that I feel comfortable going to, but I know will call me out when I'm not kind of being the best version of myself. And that will be brutally honest with me. Someone that I can have kind of hard conversations with and that expect the most out of me. Those are kind of who I would consider as mentors. And that could be maybe one of your best friends or whoever. How to go and approach and find them is a tough question.
Yeah,
I think Go ahead.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm like I love approaching people, like people
Yeah.
you don't know, and
Oh, do you, Drew? You love approaching
Yeah.
people you don't. I'm so surprised.
Yes. I wanted a quick answer because we got to flip on to the next SWAT. But you never be afraid to ask. This is something I learned as a very young child. It was, if you don't ask, you're never gonna know. And you got never be afraid to ask. You can walk up to someone at a conference, say, here's what I do. I'm exploring mentorship. Would you be interested in learning something about me and potentially being my mentor? No pressure. It's okay to ask. Come out and ask. That's how you get things that you want to advance yourself, how to get people in your corner. Come out and ask. The other piece is that it's totally okay to have your friends be your mentors. I look up to my friends. I have a great circle of friends. I ask them questions about how I should do things. Take a look at your circle of friends. People are going to be willing to help. And the other piece on that, willing to ask, you'll be surprised when you go up to somebody who's powerful, somebody who has a big name. If you do it in the right way and you're authentic, again, finding your why, presenting yourself, you'll be surprised by the response you get when you ask someone to invest in you. And not with money, but with time and energy and really love and friendship. You'll be surprised at how willing people are to invest in you. Don't underestimate that. And I think that can really help you with mentorship. Anybody want to say about that, or parting words on the pandemic? Great.
Are we going to another question, or this parting words?
So now we're going to switch over to the Hawke Cage. We got two pitches, two entrepreneurs who are coming up to the stage. And so we're just going to wait for them to pop on. Who's first, Mara or David? We got David and Mara. Okay, who's going first? I don't think we decided who was going first.
Gonna let Mara
we
go
decided.
first.
I'm actually going first.
Okay,
Ladies first. Ladies first.
Ladies first. All right, I love it. So everyone, Mara, she runs an amazing company and she's going to tell you about it. She's got about 5 minutes to talk about it, maybe a little less, maybe a little more, but we'll see. And then we're going to have us as the judges sort of ask questions. Then David's going to go next, and then we're going to quickly decide a winner of the Hawke Cage. But Mara, take it away.
Cool. And just to check, you can see my screen.
Yes.
Yep. Okay, cool. Hello, everybody. My name is Mara. I'm one of the co-founders of ZenStop, and we've been talking recently about a problem that we're all well aware of, is that employers are really struggling with employee retention right now, as well as burnout, happiness, overall well-being. And as we all know, the pandemic has highlighted and amplified that reality. And as we also all know, the future of work is typically remote, which creates this opportunity right now to set the standard for a new work-life experience. So a question we've been thinking a lot about here at ZenStop is, how do we foster connection amongst teams, as well as place emphasis on well-being within remote work culture? And how can we do that in a scalable way? So if we take a look at the market right now, here at ZenStop, we see a few problems. Calm and Headspace, while they're amazing companies, and they are also building out corporate wellness offerings, they currently don't offer well-being options for teams to practice in community. So if we were sitting here on the Zoom as a team, we all worked at one company, we have no streamlined premium experience for us to do a mindfulness experience together. So there's really this lack of accountability as these individual apps are placing emphasis on doing these practices individually. We hear a lot from our clients that employees often don't even download well-being apps provided by their company. And why? It's because it's hard to build a consistent well-being practice alone. When you don't really have your team holding you accountable to actually do the practice, it's difficult to form that positive habit and create the behavioral change that the companies want to see. So our solution is a ZenStop team well-being platform that employees actually use. So this platform is an engaging, community-based mindfulness meditation platform. It is integrated into where your team already meets. So it's in Zoom, it's in Microsoft Teams, whether you are meeting on Google Hangouts, teams can schedule and experience one of these mindfulness meditations to foster connection, enhance creativity, EQ, and all the content can be streamed live or on demand. All content is streamed from the ZenStop studio. So ZenStop already exists as a business. This is a new idea that we are raising capital for, ZenStop began as a renovated school bus turned meditation space. We took this school bus and raised the roof on it about a foot, so it's very spacious and open on the inside. We've got solar panels on top that power the entire bus, and we visit companies, offices, schools, events, bringing live taught group meditation. During the pandemic, we transitioned to live streaming all of our meditations to our clients, typically on a weekly basis, and they're all based in a team, in a group, and we've seen a great need for that throughout the pandemic as well. So this is what it looks like. And we've already shared mindfulness with hundreds of companies based here in LA since we've been live streaming across the US and across the globe. So we're already making $25,000 in monthly recurring revenue without this new ZenStop wellbeing platform that we're really excited to build out. I get called all the time to lead group mindfulness sessions for teams on Zoom. And so we're just really excited about building out this platform that can be more scalable. It is integrated, flexible, it is social, it is engaging, and just a little bit more about it is that the B2B market size in corporate wellness is already $1 billion industry, and it is rapidly growing. It's already a huge industry. We have additional things besides this ZenStop SaaS platform. If I had more time, I would explain all of it, but my name is Mara, and I'm very passionate about health, wellness, mindfulness for many reasons, including my personal story. I've studied mindfulness in a very science-backed, research benefit way. We have two co-founders, and we own 100% of our business. And I'm just gonna wrap it up by saying that we are raising $250,000 on a convertible note to build out this new integrated platform, mindfulness for teams and community. And yeah, we've been building our business bootstrapping, and we're really excited about the new craze for mindfulness and well-being practices among remote teams. So happy to take questions. I'm gonna stop my screen.
Nice.
You went so much faster than I thought you were going to go. That was fantastic.
I could have talked for another like 5-10 minutes.
Wow.
Okay,
That
we're
was
going to take
really great.
5 minutes, maybe 6-7 minutes if we can to, I'm going to let Patrick and Jahara ask some questions about your business.
Great. Let's dive in. Before I ask a question, I just want to say this was perfect transitioning from the last conversation we had right into this pitch, because I don't know if you were listening to when I was talking, but I mean, you were probably extremely panicked that you had just built a school bus, designed it beautifully for people to all interact with each other in a closed environment. And then the pandemic happened, which means that none of that was able to happen. And you guys were bootstrapped, you didn't raise money, you did it all yourself. And you are a perfect example of an entrepreneur that took that time to shift their business model and to completely shift to something that was a necessity towards what other consumers and other employees were looking for. So first off, I just wanted to say congratulations on that. Great job, because you could have easily probably quit or stopped or done something where you freaked out that your whole plan that you had just dedicated towards went to the side. So that was my first thing. One of the questions I had, just looking at it when you were talking about the pain points of employees and everything, I totally agree. I understand the idea for mental health, mental wellness. We were just talking about that. I guess what would be the main reason that a Headspace or Calm or something like that couldn't just integrate into a Zoom or into a Google Hangouts, which is what you were proposing? I guess what's the main differentiating factor from you versus what they could do?
For sure, absolutely. And I'll just start out by saying that I really admire Calm and Headspace and what they're doing in the space. I'm really inspired by their companies. One thing, the reason why we created ZenStop to begin with is really because we're all about meditation and community, doing it together. And I think we've observed over the last, 5-10 years of both of those companies being in business, they do have a community, but they've never placed emphasis on doing meditation and community. We actually had someone walk in our bus and say they like prefer, someone from their team say they prefer to do this in like solo. So I think they've always been emphasis on the individual practice, which is great. And I think some people do prefer that, but I also think there's something huge missing from the market of mindfulness and community. And so that's where we differentiate, and I'm really excited to build out a brand around that.
So I have two questions. so just so I understand the product, the idea is that you integrate with Zoom and you have someone like leading a team from ZenStop, leading a team in a group meditation. Is that correct? And it all happens over Zoom?
Correct. So a lot of the meditations and the platform that will be integrated into Zoom, it won't be live teachers. So there'll be pre-recorded options with videos that you could choose from within your company. So for example, I get a lot of calls to do meditations before brainstorming sessions. So like, let's do a 10-minute meditation on creativity before that. And they can like integrate it into here.
That makes sense. And so, yeah, okay. That was kind of piggyback on my next question of like how like many coaches you need, but practitioners or meditation instructors you need, but it feels like if they're mostly done on like an asynchronous model, then that's less of a concern. And then I guess my question would be like from like a SaaS basis or like a monetization perspective, would it be like enterprise contracts with these companies? And it's like you charge per employee who engages with the platform or per meditations per month, or how would that work from a monetization perspective?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're looking to offer this new integrated platform at $6 per employee per month. And so that helps like tier the pricing for like smaller companies versus larger companies. If the company does have over 200 people, then we will work with them on different pricing plans as well.
Got it. Okay, super helpful.
Mara, tell us a little bit about sort of when you're in the sales process going to a company, how do you know, obviously this is like it's like meditation for teams, wellness for teams. Talk to us about sort of your sales process as you go into these companies. Obviously, it's also kind of hard to just drop in with the bus like you used to and say, hey, want to check out this bus outside? Like, let's go. How are you selling to these companies? And you had so many impressive logos on that page. I mean, that's amazing. And you have monthly recurring revenue. You have these deals. How are you selling?
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually handle all the sales currently for ZenStop. And it's a lot of just direct outreach to people in HR and employee experience professionals. So it's a lot of just email funnels and campaigns. I am excited about in the future growing out the team so that I'm not doing all of the sales. I don't think that's completely strategic and best use of my time. But I am really good at it. And I think that's the only reason why we're at where we are now. So direct outreach and word of mouth by providing just like a really great premium experience. And then also having built strategic relationships in the space. And I've seen that people I've worked with at one company have moved to another company. They're like, oh, let's bring ZenStop. So just building the name. Yeah.
That's really key. And then what else would Patrick, do you have anything else for Mara? I know you're pretty embedded in the wellness space.
No, I guess, you know, the only thing that I'm really curious about is you really talked about this personalized experience and community, but it's pre-recorded. So that I guess I just really wanted to understand that more. If I have a group of employees, you know, if I were Drew's, you know, if I had 20 something people or 50 something people and I wanted to do every Monday morning, the group meditation Zoom or something like that, I feel like I would really enjoy having someone there that's talking specifically to my team or guiding them through something rather than a pre-recorded kind of template. I'm just trying to understand that offering. And I know you can only be so many places at once, but I just wonder if there's a way to build out kind of something like even like Peloton-esque where they had live classes where people could, different communities, different Hawke medias and different companies could tune in at once in their respected rooms, but still get access to you versus a recording. I don't know. That's not a question, I guess. That's more of a statement.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely agree with you. I would prefer to have a live teacher experience as well. And I've been doing that like pretty much daily. Many times a day, I'm working with companies sharing mindfulness meditation. So just really trying to think about a way to actually scale that up. And I agree with you. We plan on for this integrated platform, as mentioned, we're in very beginning stages with this technology as well. I think we are planning on having like some live stream classes that companies can tune into, but just inside their company Zoom. So they're just only seeing faces that they know. So I completely agree with you. The community and live tie
All
aspect
right.
will be.
Time is up. Real quick, how much are you raising? What's the valuation? How do we get a hold of you?
We are raising $250,000 on a convertible note. And you can get a hold of me by emailing. It's just Mara, M-A-R-A, at zenstop.co.
Perfect. Perfect. You're out of the Hawke Cage. Great job. Thanks so much. Next up, we have David at QPilot. So we're going to walk from the consumer side of the house over to the B2B side of the house, over to the the engines that power e-commerce. David, you're up. Thanks so much, Mara. Great job.
Thanks, Drew. And thanks, Mara. That was great. Thanks to the panel for having me on. Hawke Cage is exciting. Glad to be here. My name is David Bradley. I'm joining from Denver, Colorado. Super sunny day here. Feeling my Friday. Very excited to present to you guys. So my startup is QPilot. And as Drew, you mentioned, we are a B2B SaaS. The space that we're in does involve consumers. So it's not totally boring. I swear to you, there's some really cool outcomes that we power here. But essentially what we are is our SaaS and API allows you to integrate your online store. We sync up your products and allow you, using QPilot, to schedule deliveries for the future and automate them on repeats. We service both direct to consumer subscriptions. So Patrick, the way that you would see this already, right, in some of the brands you've invested in, like Emmy and Mosh, right, is they're offering subscribe and save options on their product pages to try to convert a one-time purchaser into a repeat purchaser, often giving them some kind of deal to reward them for their loyalty, to kind of pull them into that relationship. And I think we can all thank Amazon for popularizing that model and putting it on everybody's roadmap. So there's a lot of D2C brands that are interested in having repeat orders. And we'll talk a little bit more about how QPilot is unique and how we serve unique brands in that space. But we also go a little bit beyond that. So without further ado, let me share my screen with you guys and let's get into it. All right. Everybody see that okay?
Yep.
Excellent. So we do have some traction. We were launched in late 2018, early 2019. We had a year to kind of get things going before the pandemic hit. And that's where we really saw what QPilot can do. We processed over 11 million in repeat deliveries as a completely bootstrapped company. We've raised no money to date. And so far we've doubled that volume, again, as a completely bootstrapped company. What I want to do is kind of start this off as an investor conversation, talking about the opportunity. We talked about how consumers understand this already as a D2C play, right? And marketers are offering products on subscription. And this is exciting space expected to grow, right, by over 400% in 25 to 263 billion. And it's driving increased demand for delivered goods. But subscription software really doesn't get into repeat delivery. Offering a subscribe and save on a product page is a great way to convert a one-time purchaser into the idea of getting a product on a recurring basis. But to really nail the customer experience, you need to include the last mile, and subscription software doesn't do this. So it starts off, it kind of promises repeat, it promises flexibility, but without the ability to actually update what goes on in terms of how that good gets to you, it's actually very limited who can use subscription boxes successfully, meaning it's kind of a low mix of goods. That means, and this is kind of where we're going to bridge a little bit, it's not even considered by B2B. And there's a reason why you might be excited as an investor of why B2B would get involved in this space of repeat delivery, the way that D2C has transformed with subscription saying we're going to get into repeat delivery. And that's because it's massive, right? B2B retailers, as they have come online over the course of the pandemic, not only do they run transactions between them and other businesses and suppliers, selling them packaging, materials to create finished goods, they also are launching direct to consumer plays as well. We like to call them B2B, B2C hybrids. So by ignoring the B2B space entirely, they're ignoring the largest market in e-commerce. When you look at just saying a repeat delivery is for direct to consumer subscriptions, it's not. B2B purchasing is highly repeatable, and they care a lot about how goods are delivered to other businesses. We're really proud at QPilot that we service both of these styles of merchants through their online stores. They all have shopping carts. Yeah, please. Oh, sorry.
A minute.
I'll go ahead. These are our merchants, right? And we've been growing to date, servicing people selling in the industrial space for manufacturing, as well as D2C consumer goods. Here's a peek at our traction in terms of how we've grown since our launch. We're in over 300 online stores right now, and we've been growing at a steady clip. This is a quick view of what that link looks like, where a customer sees an order schedule for the future, whether that's a subscriber managing a subscription with a merchant, or it's a business managing a purchase order with a merchant. This is a quick peek at under the hood of what QPilot's able to do, re-quoting the last mile of how a shipment gets to you, no matter what you change and when or where something's going. This is who fits best with us. You're either sensitive to delivery times or you're sensitive to changes happening to future orders. Here's a quick peek at the competition space we're in and how we think our flexible integrated solution gets you out of the limited box scenario. Our team is complete expert in this space. Myself, I have a lot of experience in the operations of these types of businesses selling physical goods. My partner, Matt, in the product marketing of shipping software before he joined QPilot. Scott, our lead of engineering, and Julie, our incredible advisor out of Boulder, Colorado. We've been really focused on acquisition and growth, worked out some things that are pretty sophisticated for an early stage startup in terms of CAC and growth experiments. So we can speak to that with some numbers and some science we've brought to it so far. Our plan is to increase the number of stores we can integrate with. That's why we're raising money. We've only had one integration as a bootstrap company. We're raising capital so that we can integrate with other shopping carts. And we have a big grand vision of how we go upstream and create a lot of network effects in the supply chain, again, across D2C and B2B repeat deliveries. We're raising $2.5 million seed round to achieve these goals. We've mapped them out over the next few years in terms of how our product roadmap unlocks these markets and allows us to focus our sales and marketing efforts on an increased pool of merchants. Time's up.
Good job. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
I love the presentation. Thanks so much. I saw these numbers and graphs going up and to the right. That makes me feel really good. Oh, I love that.
That's the idea.
I'll ask the first question. Tell us about your WooCommerce integration. Why WooCommerce? Shopify is coming soon. Why is that sort of, what are the capital needs for that? Tell us a little bit more about why those integrations and a little bit about the data around that, please.
Absolutely. So I built auto ship solutions, repeat delivery solutions for both business to business purchasing and direct to consumer hundreds of times when I worked with NetSuite before actually designing QPilot. So WordPress was an interesting one at the time. This was about 2017 when I started setting out to design this with what was then a dev shop that I was running. And we had put some videos out there doing some lean startup methodology. A lot of people in the WordPress WooCommerce market saw the ability to sort of customize the platform, which is a little bit more unique than some of where Shopify is going to create more customizability. Shopify has proved itself to be such a monster in terms of its appeal to marketers and brands, where you can plug and play things. You got e-commerce in a box, launch it fast type of thing. So it's really interesting. I think having started off with WordPress, which is self-hosted, we've actually become an extremely powerful API and integration because we can handle a lot of things that are outside of people's control necessarily, whereas Shopify is more of a closed box and you can expect things to work a certain way. So we're really excited to bring the integration to the Shopify ecosystem and have quite a few of these customers in our beta already, selling everything from perishable goods to supplies.
Fantastic. 6 minutes.
Let me just jump in here. This sounds super interesting, but to be fully transparent, I think it was too much information for me in that 5 minutes. I couldn't fully follow along. Maybe that's my fault, but if you could just give me, and I'm sure there's a bunch of listeners on here that have a company, just walk me through quickly, why would I use this? Let's go with my new company, Mosh, right? We've got about over 10% of people that bought this week out of the 10,000 plus orders are on subscription. They can go and they can change it from 30 days, 45 days, 60 days, 90 days. If they want, they can change their order. They can cancel it. They can delay it a week or a month. What are you doing different for my customer and why should I use it?
Yeah, there's two things that I would say to that, Patrick. I think Mosh is a great example. A lot of the merchants that we gain were using subscription software before they come onto QPilot. And there's two reasons. One is scalability. So as Mosh scales up its operations to offer subscriptions to people in other areas outside of your current delivery zones, that last mile shipping, something that your operations team is going to start talking about a lot, is the fact that over 90% of these types of orders do need to include some sort of shipping. That increases more as you get outside of your early delivery zones. You're going to have to be able to work with the fact that those food deliveries, those Mosh deliveries might need to go different places, whether that's a customer changing that, a subscriber saying, I need this to go to a different location. Can you quote me a shipping rate for that? Or is it still free, right? We got to protect those margins so that that loyal customer relationship is very profitable for Mosh, and so that you can scale it up to offer it to other areas as the business grows.
So I understand that, but I'm not, as Mosh, I don't change anything for my customer. I eat the shipping costs no matter what. If they subscribe, that's the incentive for them to subscribe. So if the guy wants it in, at his second house in Orlando, Florida, if he wants it at his Utah residence or whatever, that's what I'm paying for Mosh. But why? I just am missing the benefit for myself, I guess.
For yourself as the merchant or the consumer?
Yeah, as the merchant. The consumer is king, right? They're not going to have to pay. If they message the company and say, hey, my next subscription, I'm at my summer house, do you mind sending it there? I can imagine 95% of companies would say, sure, you're the customer, you're king, we're not going to charge you extra money. But maybe I'm wrong, but go ahead.
Yeah, a couple of those. And maybe a quick question to you in terms of those margins with shipping, if that is something that you guys might change as the operations grow. What we typically see with shipping, because it's a lot of our sweet spot, is there's going to be some sort of minimum of saying, yes, as a subscriber, we might be giving you better deals, including free shipping, things like that. But there's two things going on here. If that happens, like you said, I got to change where it goes. One, not everywhere it goes is something that your team is likely going to say, oh, we're just going to eat the shipping no matter what, right? So the ability to say, like, chase them around where they're going, no matter how big or how much they change what's in the order, doesn't need to be a conversation between them and your team saying, hey, can you do this for me, right? QPOT's implemented all of that automatically for them through that customer portal. So just like they're doing in a shopping cart, but with lead time, right? We can actually say, look, you can use cheap, slow cost delivery methods to get it to them, right? They can make the change they want. We can re-quote it to them, and they can change the mix in a much more flexible way without having to give you guys a call and saying, hey, it didn't look like this was on the menu, but I still want to do it, right? Can you guys make that happen for me? Something that I've had to do a lot with my Gobble subscription, for example. Hey, I'm going to be in San Diego. I need it over there. I have to call them to make that change. My portal isn't good enough on subscription software to do that on my own.
I would love to understand like who you think of as a direct competitor, right? And I just want to also understand from a product perspective where you sit in on the stack, right? So are you both, and correct me if I'm wrong, so you're both the mechanism in which to subscribe as an API, but you're also you're managing deliveries, and how are you doing that on the back end? Like, are you basically just contracting on the back end, like aggregating like who the best delivery services are, what makes the most sense? Are you using your own last mile delivery service? Like I didn't understand that piece.
That's a great question. So just like we do with your payments, right, which is your payment gateway as the merchant, we do it with your shipping APIs that you've already integrated into your shopping cart. So it's not a huge heavy lift, right? We're saying we're going to use those same integrations. Now we do have our own rules engine that does, just like you said, Jawar, it aggregates all of the possible outcomes saying, here's the order schedule for the future. Here are the delivery methods that get it there through your shipping providers, right? And here's the lowest cost one, and or here's the one that matches the delivery window in which it has to arrive, right? So even if you're dealing in a super tight delivery window, we can re-quote and meet that last mile expectation in a way that the customer sees what to expect.
Got it. And so who's a comp? Like, for example, we're investors in Passport. So would that be a comp?
Over time, unfortunately.
All right.
I'd love to follow up with those questions.
I appreciate you all being here on this panel. We had how VC pandemic has changed the lens, the operations. We had the Hawke Cage. We are over time. I don't think we have time to even come up with who's our winner today, but you're both winners. Love your businesses. You're running businesses with that revenue. You have customers. And we'd love to see you grow. So in my opinion, you're both winners. So I don't want to make a winner today.
Yeah,
So
great job
thanks
to
so
both of
much.
you guys. And thank you guys for coming on, and Drew, thanks for having me. It was really fun.